Good morning, Santa Paula. I'm with Mayor Rick Araiza today. It's Thursday, May 7th, I believe. I'd have to check. Every day's kind of running into each other with our isolation. But anyway, I watched the council meeting last night, Rick, and I saw you guys and gals, I might add, and you had a lot on your plates, even though it's kind of awkward because you're doing this on Zoom, as it were. But you had some very strong items of interest, and I think amongst them was probably, let's just go right to the budget. I'm just curious. I know we're having a shortfall. Everybody's having shortfalls. It's really tragic what's going on, and so unexpected. No way to plan for this to have happened. But how are we fixed on our reserve, our general fund reserve? Do you have any idea how much money we still have in that?
We have not had to touch the reserves as of yet. So prior to this epidemic, we had sold some property and we built the reserves up to 1.8 million, right?
Great.
1.8 million. Actually, the 2 years ago when I was acting city manager, we were down to 600,000. So we built it up over 1.2. So we're up to 1.8 million. So we have not had to touch those reserves yet.
Okay, great. And I don't imagine anybody, it's like, a private home or a private whatever, you've got your budget and that's your savings. So you don't want to touch your savings. Now, I was heartened though that it looks like with careful planning and basically, belt tightening as you were all talking about last night, that we might just go ahead and weather this through a little bit, even though it's still going to be tight. And you're expecting a shortfall, I know, of 1.3 million. But last night you were all discussing $500,000 to Measure T, and it's left over from last year, and some other minor cuts. What kind of cuts are you talking about at this point?
Well, obviously the offline training, where we'd send people out to training, that's been stopped. Any new hires has been stopped. As you said, the budget shortfall that we've been told is 1.3. If we have not decided to use the Measure T, that 500,000, but it looks like that is going to be an easy way to at least get the 500,000 because it was not spent last year.
Right.
Measure T committee has indicated that it'd be a good idea to use it. We're concerned that Measure T was for 3 areas: for public service, for streets, and recreation. So we don't ever want to change from that. At least that's my position. And so it would have to go into those 3 areas as a shortfall for me to go ahead and use that 500,000. It is a source, but so that brings us to 800,000. We're trying to look at various ways. Each department was told to try and cut wherever they could. We also put a hiring freeze. So do you have
a dollar amount on the hiring freeze? Do you have a dollar amount on the hiring freeze?
I don't recall. I thought it's about 200,000.
Okay.
Rough. That's on the top of my head. I'm not looking at any papers right now, but I thought that's what it was. So we also were looking at furloughs. So if people would voluntarily furlough and that would be no pay for a day or two, then that would be a savings to the city. So we're looking at, those are all negotiated items that need to be presented. So I have not had a report on any of that. Those are things that we're looking at. Those are things that we're probably going to have to discuss with the unions and the employees. But it's as you said, it's a tightening of the belt, and we're trying to save jobs. That's what we're trying to do.
Now, I know Oxnard announced that they were going to be cutting, 10.3 million. Of course, Oxnard's the largest city in the county, but it's just an example of what's going on. It looks like cities across the whole county are right off the top figuring they're going to have to do a real quick 10%, approximately 10% cuts. Now, probably some are worse than others because Ojai is almost solely dependent on the Ojai Valley Inn. So, Santa Paula, at least we do have our revenue generators. And now I know that they figured that it was going to be a record year as far as the income from Measure T. and the income to regular sales tax. Unfortunately, with the COVID-19 virus, and it's funny because I think people don't realize that when we get a sales tax, we have to share that with people, the county and this and that. But when we get the Measure T, that goes directly into the city coffers. So that is every penny with that counts. So now what are your next steps as far as with the budget? Are you guys going to have another meeting? Are you just going to hold off and study for the next few weeks?
Well, I think as you know, we're in the middle of, early part of May. So the budget is being developed right now. So there'll be a presentation. There's going to be a study session end of May, and then we're going to really get to the nuts and bolts of the budget first week in June. Hopefully have a budget adopted by the second meeting in June. So we're right in the heart of that right now. Unfortunately, it's also the time when we don't know what those payments are going to be affected. This is a unique year because COVID was in March, and those payments don't come to us until end of May and June. We're only given estimates. So we're trying to be conservative as we can. Hopefully we'll be, but most definitely once we approve the budget, there'll be some kind of adjustment that'll be necessary mid-year, as there is every year. But this year will be especially important to adjust that budget once we have the actual figures.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, you've also discussed, let me refer to my notes. You also discussed the hemp processing plant, which I know a lot of people are very welcoming to it. And it's not recreational marijuana. It's not medicinal marijuana. It's the medicinal offshoots of marijuana. It's just hemp, and it's the CBD oil and all those things. Now, are they going to have the point of purchase here in town, or not point of purchase, but are we going to be able to collect a sales tax on that? I know we'll have a boost in property tax.
I believe so. I believe that's why they were so anxious to come in. They're not sure on the estimated sales of what the hemp. I know we talked about two businesses, and one's in closed session, so I really can't discuss that one. But there's we're looking for any way we can to generate some income to the city. And hemp, the processing, which is relatively clean. It's they're going to have filtration system throughout the building. It'll be internal. It'll be extracting the oil out of the hemp plant for the CDBG medicinal purposes that are used. And yes, we anticipate that sales will be coming from there.
Okay, that's great. Well, and don't forget, I mean, I'm sure everybody in the audience realizes that used to be a manufacturing building for silicone products. And so, of course, they had to follow the same CUP requirements and the conditional uses and the whole thing. So it's very strictly overseen, and they have a lot of rules and regulations to follow, correct?
That's correct. It's through a CUP process. It's already gone to the Planning Commission with all the restrictions, and that is the same building that was silicone. They are now gone, and they are. I don't know if I think it's a rental right now for that hemp processing.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Absolutely. Now, as far as the election results, so come November, or I guess basically we don't have an election, but the people now that maybe like our city treasurer Sandy Easley, she's still in office until November or December actually, and I don't believe we have we've got an appointed, so yes, so that would be Grace Kelly. So she's still our city clerk until November, December.
That is correct. The election doesn't take effect until after this term. So at that point, they will then be appointed and not elected as in the past.
Correct. Yes. Actually hired, I guess, is based at least they will be city clerk.
And if you've seen the news lately, Oxnard is in the exact opposite of what we are. His is elected, so the city has no control.
Yes, absolutely. Well, they do it very differently in Oxnard. You know, I was lots different in Oxnard, bless their hearts, but yeah, that's been quite controversial. What could I say? Now, also, let's see. I'm glad to hear that we're applying again for the grant to work on Harvard Boulevard. That's a very good thing. And let's see, I had another question. You told me the very good news about what's in the general fund reserve. I'm really happy to hear that. And let's see. Of course, the financial situation overall is, we're just going to have to wait and see. And I think basically we pretty well covered everything that went through. Now, how do you think people are reacting to having the online meetings? I noticed that you were getting some public comment that people had called in or emailed.
Yeah, I getting a little bit of comment from that. I mean, even for us, it's a learning curve as well as anybody
Mm-hmm.
else. This morning, it was our first regional sanitation Zoom meeting, and it was our first one. So some of us older people who aren't as computer savvy, we had
the 12-year-old. Yeah.
They need to have their grandchild in there showing them what buttons to hit, because
the 7-year-old.
We had some trouble with mooting, and then we'd try to vote, and ours went extremely smooth for the city council. That wasn't so much for the regional sanitation this morning. We were getting a lot of feedback. Some people couldn't get on unmuted, and it took a long time, but I'm sure our next one will be much faster. It seems like my whole day is Zoom, from one Zoom to the next Zoom. So.
Who was that? Captain Marvel? Who was a Captain Zoom? Remember, he used to, when we were all kids, he'd go Zoom to you. I think he might have wound up being a resident for a while at a certain large campus in Camarillo, but I'm not really sure.
I think that's going to be the norm for a while.
Yeah.
Even though I'm hearing they're loosening up a little bit, I don't think we're going to be jumping right back into social meetings for a while.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, best wishes to you and yours. And anything you'd like to add, Rick? I think we're pretty well wrapped up here.
No, I think we need to continue to social distance, and Santa Paula numbers, they're holding steady. Hopefully it doesn't grow too much more. And
yes, absolutely.
Stay safe out there.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I'm Peggy Kelly once again. I was with Mayor Rick Araiza, and be sure to visit kadytv.com and subscribe to these broadcasts, and that way we'll be able to bring you even more broadcasts. We certainly appreciate you tuning in, and we'll see you in a few days. Thank you so much.